I know that your comments were really well intentioned, and I want to thank you for listening and engaging. And I also think it's just your comment is useful to dig a little bit deeper here. The dislike of touching fat people is fat phobic. And also we have to be clear that this isn't fat people going out of their way to try and invade other people's spaces. We are just trying to exist in public space. Weight and body size is considered an immutable characteristic, which means it's something that we don't actually have control over, in the same way that folks don't have control over their sexuality or race or ethnicity. They're things that are intrinsic to our being. We can't control how much space that we take up in the world. We're just trying to exist. Going back to my original video, fat people know how much other people, especially on planes, do not want to be in physical contact with us. We can feel it. We can see it on your faces. We can hear it in your groans. Sometimes we can read it on your phones when you're texting people about us. So here are some things that would be a really great practice for thin folks and even other fat folks who haven't dealt with their fat phobia that you can do to both continue to challenge your own internalized fat phobia and more actively show up for fat people in these spaces that cause a lot of distress for us. This is not universal to all fat folks. This is just something that I was thinking about as I was having to fly a lot over the last month. So, use your human intuition when you're real life in these spaces. If you happen to be sitting next to a fat person on a plane and you notice that we are contorting our bodies to try and take up as little space as possible, you can let us know that it's okay to make ourselves comfortable. You could volunteer to lift up the armrest. That's a big issue. Don't make it a thing when we ask for a seatbelt extender. If a fat person is in a middle seat, that is so fucking dreaded for us. No, it's dreaded. And you have an opportunity to switch a seat with a fat person so that they can be in a seat that's more comfortable for them, please do that. If you see someone being a fat phobic asshole on a flight, trade with that person. Do what you can to make sure that the fat person you are sitting near is not having to sit next to someone who is being actively hating on them. Anyway, those were just a few thoughts that I have. Other fat people, if you want to share some of the ways that you would love if people could help make you feel more comfortable on planes, let me know.
Not wanting to touch people on planes isn't because of fat phobia. Nobody wants to touch any stranger on a plane. You're just more likely to touch a fat person because they take up more space. And weight and size are definitely mutable characteristics, and we absolutely have control over them. In the rest of this video, if someone is large enough that they are taking up more than one seat, then yes, some people are probably going to be annoyed. If someone pays for a seat, and then part of that seat is being taken by someone else, that can definitely be annoying. I think it's unfortunate that fat people can't be more comfortable on planes, and I don't think people should be mean, but nobody wants to touch anyone on a flight. And if you have to, you're not going to be happy about it. And all the other tips in this video about switching middle seats and lifting armrests and whatever, if someone wants to do that, by all means do that. But I don't think that should be expected. It's not fat phobic if I am in a window seat and I don't want to switch to a middle seat for a stranger. That's just me wanting to be more comfortable for myself.
Hi, I'm going to talk a little bit about flying while fat. The older and fatter I've gotten, the more my flight anxiety revolves around being fat in an airport and being fat on planes. Especially being on planes, fat people, y'all know that the looks that we can get from people, the actual comments that we get from people are just not great. It's not fun. I recently flew for the first time since the start of the pandemic, and like many folks, got fatter, which is fine, but was really nervous about being on a plane. I was traveling, though, with my partner, who is thinner than me, and so I did use her as a literal human buffer between me and some other folks when we were on full flight, so I didn't have to deal with the looks or sounds of people having to sit next to a fat person. I asked for seatbelt extenders. It ended up being fine, but again, had my person to be there as buffer and moral support. Last week, I had to travel to a conference for work and was traveling by myself. And on my first flight, got my seatbelt extender, which was fine, but it ended up being a completely full flight, and someone had to come sit in the middle seat next to me, and I ended up being in physical pain from how I was trying to contort my body so that I was giving this person space. So I finally, for the first time, decided to advocate for myself, and before my next flight, I made sure I went and talked to the woman at the counter at Southwest and got their traveler of size policy activated so that I could have a buffer seat. But she did go ahead and change all of my return flights so that I could have the buffer seat, and wow, my anxiety was so much less not having to worry about what folks were going to say because they had to touch me. So if you have been putting off getting the proper accommodations for yourself, either because of your internalized fat phobia that you're still unpacking or ableism, this is your sign to do it. Get your accommodations. You deserve to be comfortable.
If you are in pain sitting in a plane seat, that's not fat phobia. That's the consequence of your size. She said she was contorting herself to give the person next to her, quote, space, but I don't know why she needed to put it in quotes because that is their space, and it should only be taken up by them. And about the customer of size policy, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like the fat acceptance movement would have a problem with it because customer of size is a euphemism for fat, and they don't like euphemisms for fat, so why haven't I heard any complaints about this? But anyway, this policy only exists on Southwest Airlines, so that's the only airline that you can ask for that accommodation. So until the day other airlines implement this policy, we're going to acknowledge that each person's space is allotted to a single seat unless you purchase another one.
All right, let's get into it. Just because you're fat, that doesn't mean you're automatically unhealthy. I'm fat. And guess what? I'm healthy. Fat people are not inherently lazy. They don't always eat too much. Skinny people can be lazy. Skinny people can also eat too much. Anyone can eat too much. Anyone can be unhealthy. But just because you're fat, that doesn't mean you are automatically unhealthy. My labs, just like many fat people's labs, are totally fine. But regardless of whether those labs are fine, that doesn't mean you can disrespect people because they're less healthy than you. If you have a health superiority complex, get the fuck off my page. If you think you are better than someone, okay, so aka if you think you're better than someone because you're healthier than them, that's not gonna fly. Moral of the story, fat people, you're fine the way you are. Stop letting people think you're gonna die at 40. We are fine. We are totally fine. So next time you encounter a fat phobe, just have compassion. Know that they're probably going through something themselves. They might have some problems with their bodies or food or exercise you never even know. They might even be a gym bro. Anyway, I love you. Have a good day.
First of all, it isn't fat phobic to assume that if someone is fat that they eat too much. That's true 99.9% of the time. It's an assumption that hasn't failed me yet. Your body size is a reflection of how much you eat and exercise for skinny and fat people. And yes, anyone can be lazy. And I think we need to define what healthy is. Health isn't just defined as your lab values or not having a quantifiable illness right now. But let's look at someone like Eugenia Cooney. As far as we know, her lab values are great. She's not bedbound. She's outliving her life. Is it wrong to assume that she's unhealthy then? Genuine question if a fat activist would like to answer it. I would say it's very obvious she's unhealthy based purely on her body size because we know that size is unhealthy. Just like I will openly say that if you are morbidly obese, you are unhealthy. Health isn't just lab values, and you're making a terrible argument if you believe that.
Let's talk about promoting obesity and how it's absolutely just junk propaganda. Fat creators aren't out here giving their 15 steps to get that fat bod by summer, or our hot 8 tips to getting fat quick. I have never seen a fat creator selling products to help people get fat. And there is certainly no $72 billion industry in the US alone to help people get fat. What you actually are calling promoting obesity is just fat people not hating themselves and in fact having the audacity to like and celebrate themselves, which is promoting absolutely nothing other than self-love, which by the way is good for your mental health no matter what body you have. And hey, if you care so much about what other people are eating, start fighting against food deserts. Start pushing the government to subsidize fresh fruit and veggies so they're more financially accessible than high-fat, high-sugar foods. Start pushing for cooking and nutrition classes in all schools, no matter the zip code. And you better start fighting for universal health care so we can have more preventative medicine. But you won't do that because it was always just about hating fat people.
These people have to be being purposefully obtuse, right? Fat creators that push the idea that being fat is perfectly healthy aren't pushing people to become fat. They're convincing people to remain fat. And there may not be any explicit messages to gain weight quickly, but you're conveniently ignoring all of the fast food commercials that are everywhere, telling people that buying fast food for their family is somehow healthier and less expensive than cooking at home, or cereal ads that tell people, including children, that sugar-laden cereal is somehow healthy. Fast food and processed food companies have convinced people to adopt their foods into their everyday life, which has led to the obesity epidemic. And by telling people that being obese is healthy or normal, you are absolutely helping those companies in promoting obesity. So even if you're not directly getting a check from Kraft or Heinz or McDonald's for your service, they are certainly benefiting from this type of fat acceptance rhetoric.